Everybody in? Hi, everybody. Welcome to Displaced, Not Defeated. We're going to give people just another couple minutes to get into the Zoom room and then we'll get started. All right. Oh, let's let this last person.
Alexander, thank you. Good evening to you as well.
All right. Looks like I think we're at a critical mass. Nobody's joined in a little bit. So let's go ahead and get started. So go ahead. Brian, do you want to introduce the session?
All right, everybody. Welcome this evening. Thank you for spending your uh, Thursday evening with us as part of Professional Development Month through the UMD Alumni Association. My name is Brian Kempton, and I'm the Director of Career Services and Alumni Relations for the School of Public Policy at the University of Maryland. And Radeep, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Hardeep Chowdhury. I'm the Career Services and Alumni Relations Coordinator here at the School of Public Policy as well. And I just also want to say thank you all for being here. We're excited to have you.
So a couple of things first. Over the next hour, we're going to be running a very quick program and a couple of things that I want everybody to sort of try to help us out with. Number one, if you're comfortable, please, like Alexander, turn your camera on. It's a lot easier to talk to a room full of smiling faces than it is black boxes with white text. I think we'll make it a little bit more of an intimate gathering for us this evening. So if you'll consider doing that, that'd be really helpful. And thank you for that. Um, Secondly, I would like to say that Hardeep and I are going to be splitting duties tonight and talking about some of the content that we have for you. We have a worksheet for you. You have some slides we're going to send you. There's a lot of stuff we're going to go over. We're going to take turns monitoring the chat. Because we have 24 now, I'm admitting this last person, 24 people in here, we are not going to go around and have everybody introduce themselves and tell where they're coming from, just out of the pure nature that we need to stay on time. But what I would like to do is for each and every one of you, as you see on the chat, to enter into that box there a little bit about what you're hoping to gather out of this evening's presentation. It can be a few words. It could be something like, I want to learn how to sort of update my LinkedIn to reflect how my federal government skills are transferable to other sectors. It can be something about getting a little bit of hope given the current state of the job market. It can be finding colleagues at Maryland that are going through the same thing that I am, to sort of be in the same community with each other. Fellowship, I love it, Jed. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. Anything along those lines is going to be really helpful for me and Hardeep to sort of tailor what we're talking about tonight. I will tell you that we are going to pay attention to that very closely as we go through the workshop tonight. Where this workshop is born from, I want to go over a couple quick points about that. At the School of Public Policy this past year, as you can imagine, if we have any policy terps in this group, please indicate that you're here. But our community, especially at the University of Maryland this past year, was hit really, really hard with Doge and being riffed and otherwise disrespected over the course of the last 8 or 10 months. And we developed a program that we put together through school public policy that we offered last June. And in October, that was a 2 day, full day, in-person workshop that helped our alums who had been displaced find new work. And so what we decided to do as a part of Professional Development Month at the Alumni Association was add a little bit of that program to this month's offerings to sort of share it with a broader community outside of the School of Public Policy. So what we did was we truncated a lot of the workshop and brought it down to a more manageable hour-long content. So it's going to be a very 30,000-foot level program, one that's going to try to hit some of the highlights that we covered with our alums. And hopefully you guys find some usefulness out of it today. As you have questions, as you have comments, as you would like to guide the conversation, please keep the chat active so that we can make this as useful as we can. Okay. So with that, we're already 7 minutes in. Hardeep, why don't you take it over?
All right. So real quick, I'm not going to read all these to you, but these are the 6 topics we're going to talk about. We'll leave some Q&A at the end. So please do your best to hold your questions till then so we keep the train on time. So with that, let's get started. So our personal brand, and let's start like with what it's not. It's not about self-promotion necessarily. It's more about the clarity and how people can understand what your professional identity is. And these are some general tips to help you think about how you can frame that and how you share your story. Now, this is especially important if you've been out of the service, out of the job for a while, or you're looking to move into a different sector. I saw in the chat some of you mentioned that you're looking to move from maybe a federal agency into a private sector type role or something like that. And this is a great way to start thinking about that. So some additional questions to think about with, in addition to what we see here on the slides, like what am I known for? What do my colleagues come to me for? What problems do I solve at work? And what skills do I consistently use again and again? And as you start thinking about that, you can think about what your personal brand is. And real quick, Brian, I was trying to put that worksheet into the chat, but Zoom isn't letting me. Could you try to do that, please? And then as I quickly mentioned, we do have like a worksheet that you will be able to take with you, and you can have that as a reference to just try and apply some of the stuff we talk about and have it as a reference. And if anybody does want a copy of the slide deck, just reach out to us afterwards and we'll send you a PDF copy. All right, so resumes. So your resume is one of the main tools you use to communicate your brand and your value. It should make it easy for someone to quickly understand what results you've produced, how you've impacted the organizations you've worked at, and how you've made things better. Now, these are some general bullet points on the left. And the second one, tailoring each version, I really think it's vital to do that. And I'll say this as somebody who's changed majors and fields a couple times. You know, I started college as an English major, went to accounting, then to history. And I wouldn't use the same set of documents for each of those programs. So I wouldn't do that for in applying for a job either. And then the other thing that's vitally important is thinking about making it clear. And on the right-hand side of this slide, you'll see 4 words: context, challenge, action, result. That's a framework I like to use when applying or generating new bullet points for a resume. And the idea is that it helps me figure out the key elements of the story I want to tell, and then gives me a framework for telling that story. And so when we say results, I want you to think in terms of numbers, like how many accounts you saved, how many people you served, how much money you saved, how much money revenue you generated, things like that. Those are all valid accomplishments to include, and not just job descriptions. Like I know for many people, they would just repeat the duties into their resume, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's not going to land you the job. It's not going to really show what the impact you had in that um, organization. And you don't need, like, for context, challenge, action, result, it doesn't need to be explicitly laid out like that, but this is a good way to start really thinking about how you're showing your impact to a potential employer or coworker or employer or manager, excuse me. And so cover letters. And yes, they're still important. And I think that, they are, in some organizations, they're replacing them with statements of interest or things like that. But this is a great chance for you to really explain your motivation and transitions. And it can also really help highlight your transitions in a way that a resume can't. Like if you're changing from federal to private, a help uh, a strongly written cover letter will help connect the dots for an employer or manager to see why why you want to work for that organization, and why your skills and experiences will make you a good fit. Think of it as a value pitch and highlighting your why. I think it's also that's another thing. I think it should start with a strong statement of interest in why you want the job, what drew you to apply, and then how your experience will help you add value to that organization. And then I guess so interviews, Brian, you'll handle this.
Put it in there and it's not working. Um, I'll let you. One of the things I want to talk here about is a little bit about the interview process. 'Cause as I'm looking through the chat, everybody here has been a successful interview. Every one of you's gotten a job. Every one of you's had, oops, sorry, I believe you're, oops.
Brian, someone's saying they can't hear you.
How about now? Is that better? A little bit? Okay, good. Um, what I wanted to share about sort of the interview route is, we're not going to start talking too much about basics because I think we're all very, very much past that. What I did notice in the chat, still can't hear, very faint. Sorry for technology issues. Just a second. Okay, how about now? No.
Like I turned my volume up and I could hear you, but I don't know.
How about now? Any better, anybody? No, still not good. So a little bit. Some thumbs up, some no. Still very faint. Artie, why don't you continue on here and I'm gonna try to figure out all these tech issues we're having.
Yes, sorry about that, everybody. So interviews are really where all the work you put in pays off. They're less about perfect answers and more about a chance telling your story. And uh, these first two questions here on this slide are, tell me about yourself, why you want your job, or why do you want this job? So when we say past, they don't need to hear, I was born in wherever, blah, blah, blah. Like they want to know what your relevant background is, what you're doing now, and what you want to do, and what is the impact you want to have. And then for the why this job, you really need to show that you've done your homework. I know with some firms, they often get people who just want to be a part of the firm. And especially in some of the bigger accounting firms that they've talked to me, some of the recruiters I've talked to from there often mention that when they get candidates, they're more interested in working for EY than they are actually doing the work. And so I think when they say why this job, they want to know that you understand the day to day of what you're signing up for or what you're going to be doing, and that you're actually interested and enthusiastic about doing it. Now, I'm what the STAR technique. This is one of my favorite um, interview question template ways to answer an interview question because it's a good framework, and it's an acronym: situation, task, action, result. But ultimately, so what was the situation like? What was your context? The task was what was your responsibility? And A is how did you achieve it? And R is what happened. Now, generally, my rule of thumb when using this framework is to really focus on the actions and the results. And oftentimes people will provide a lot of information at the front when the interviewers really want to hear about the actions and the results. So, as a general rule of thumb, I think it's helpful to really emphasize the majority of your response on the action and result. Excuse me. And then the next thing I want to talk about, I know for some of us, we've been on the job, we've gone on plenty of job interviews, and the thank you note, it is a vital part of the interview. Even if you feel like it didn't go well and they probably aren't going to hire you, I think it's still good to send a thank you note and keep it short, keep it specifically, and keep it timely. And reinforce your interest in the role, reference something from the conversation, and re-emphasize your value. And ultimately, it is a really small step that makes a big difference. It'll leave a positive last impression with the interviewers as well as the potential hiring managers. So I do think it's vital to do that at least on almost every interview. I mean, if it's a big group interview, the main organizers is just fine, but ultimately you should be doing this with every interview you go on. Excuse me. So next I want to talk about our digital presence. And I think it's important to realize in today's world that our digital presence is going to be reviewed simultaneously with our application materials. Fact is, they'll be looking at you on LinkedIn, and they might be searching other places. It just depends on the organization. But whatever you put online, just remember that any potential employer will be seeing it. And everything that you see or that you post online should help support your professional story. And ultimately, remember that consistency is how you build credibility. Whether it's on social media, going to in-person networking events, or meeting people for informational interviews, consistency is the key to success with all of those. So this is our LinkedIn checklist. Like I said, I would be sending you a copy, excuse me, of this. But with that about section, the first three lines are what anybody who views your profile page is going to see. So we need to write the most vital information within those three lines and make it compelling enough that they would want to click to see more if there is more for us to add. And the other thing I think, like for feds, we have a couple bullets here, and then like using terms like cross-sector teams and things like that. And then the other thing I would also say is start looking at recommendations from your network and then joining LinkedIn groups. I think those are some of the best ways, and especially the groups, because within the groups, most of the people who are in that group have the same professional interest as you. And oftentimes those groups will have multitudes of job postings and other relevant information for you as you are looking to get into your next role. And then the featured section is a relatively new feature, but I think anytime you publish anything or anything you're particularly proud of, feel free to use that because it's a great way to really show like what you've done. And then these are some general tips for cultivating and building your network. And so it's not just asking for a job, right? It's staying in a relationship. It's about these small actions that will add up over time to help us advance our career. So you can check in with quick messages, attending events, but ultimately, networking really comes down to two key questions. What are you looking for? And what can you offer? And I think once you have some idea of what the answer to those two questions are, you can network much more effectively. And when you're in networking meetings, have a plan for what it is you're looking for, what you're looking to achieve, and how you intend to achieve it. And it's not just about going to a networking event and collecting everybody's business card and then sending a LinkedIn request and then doing nothing with it. It's like, let's make some genuine connections, let's have some solid conversations, and let's stay in touch and build that relationship over time. The results you get from networking might not be fast and immediate, but when they do come, the payoff is immense. All right, give me a second. So this is going to be these next couple of slides. These are AI is one of my favorite things I know. There are some concerns about using AI, and but it is a very powerful tool. But ultimately, it's not a replacement for your judgment and your competencies. And so these are some ways that AI can help you um, you can use AI. So resume, cover letter optimization, job descriptions, interview prep, brainstorming. And think of it as like a brainstorming partner. Like you can't just copy and paste what AI gives you without editing and refining and fixing it to make it sound more like you. AI doesn't necessarily know what your writing style is, so you need to be able to help refine the responses to ensure that it matches your writing style and tone. Now, the next slide, these are some of on the right-hand side, these are several popular AIs. Now, I believe Smith has just started using JobScan. So if you are a Smith alum, you might have access to that. But and then I think ChatGPT we're all pretty familiar with, right? And so the ChatGPT and then the next two Fed to Industry and Fed to Industry GPTs are generative predict or AIs run hosted in ChatGPT that this Fed to Industry group created at the beginning of last year when all the changes in the federal workforce were happening. So I know some of you have said you're looking to transfer into or move to the private sector from the feds. So I think these are those first two are really good. Gemini is Google's AI. It's pretty good. And then Career Dreamer, launched last summer. They haven't been as promoting it as vigorously lately, but I think it's a great way to really think about potential career paths, alternative, um, alternative paths, and things like that. And also, it provides just an abundance of information on how you can pivot or transfer into a new industry. So definitely take a look at that. And then this next one, Hiring Coach AI. That is it's another freemium uh AI. Like you can use it for free, but they will try to get you to sign up for a premium. And what's nice about that is like it takes all your job application materials, resume, cover letter, things like that, and helps you use that to optimize a resume. And you can also put a job description in there and it'll help you optimize your resume to the job description. And then it also has a really strong interview prep tool, which is very helpful. It will ask you like questions that it randomly generates, or you can tell it, ask me this question and evaluate my answer. And I really appreciate that. And then another thing that I really like about this particular one, Hiring Coach, is that when you tell it you're going for an interview, it will play a hype song for you. So I really appreciate that. Like it helps you because going to an interview can be nerve-wracking. Let's be real. And when you have like a hype song or just something that puts you in a good mood, I think that's a great way to really help ease the tension before an interview. And like when we did this in our sessions that Brian mentioned earlier, when we did the demo, it played, I think, Lose Yourself by Eminem or something like that, which I thought was kind of funny, but I think it's probably one of the most thorough and comprehensive free AIs that you can use. So give all of these a chat check. Use the ones that you feel most comfortable with. Claude is also good. I just realized I didn't put that on there, but feel free to check that out as well. And then now when the ultimately success with AI comes to the quality of the prompt. Like if you give it a terrible prompt, it's going to give you a terrible output. And so the simplest way I like to set up a prompt is role task format. So if I was writing it for my resume, I would say your role is resume writer, and I need you to optimize my resume for this role or this particular bullet, whatever you feel. And I need it to highlight my the fact that I grew a program, generated increased sales revenue or things like that. And it'll help you get better prompts that you can actually use with less refining. And then on LinkedIn, there's a gentleman named Paul Carney. His prompt a day newsletter, I've been reading it since about 2023. It's one of the most helpful AI newsletters of all. Like, because he helps you with using it for things like your personal things like workout, nutrition plans. He helps you generate prompts for that. And then also, of course, career related stuff, resumes, cover letters, strategizing within a team, and things like that. So definitely take a look at that and use that regularly because it's a like the best way to get better at AI is to consistently use it. And so we've actually come
Dave, can you mention the name of the newsletter again? Somebody's asking what that was.
oh, prompt a day.
And can people hear me now? I'm on two different devices. So okay, good. All right, there we go.
All
Prompt
right. And I
today.
mean,
There you go.
yeah, we went through that pretty quick. So, um, yeah, and I think, and on your worksheet, we wanted you to think about like one action you'll take to jumpstart your job search as you leave here tonight. Start thinking about uh what is an action you'll take within the next 7 days to jumpstart your job search. It could be reaching out to people, signing up for different listservs, setting up an informational interview, setting up a meeting with a career coach, something like that. Those are all perfectly relevant um, way things we can do for that. And then these are some additional resources. And like I said, we got through this pretty quick, but the Alumni Career Fair is happening in a couple weeks. That's the last link here. So definitely attend that. I'm not sure how if it's going to be tech heavy or not, how tech heavy it will be. But I'm not sure off the top of my head what are there actually. I forgot to check. But I also want to encourage you to use Terrapins Connect, as well as your regional and academic alumni network. And the Alumni Association has some career resources, which are all linked here. And like I said, we'll be just email Brian or I, and we will send you a copy of this slide deck. And I realized we went through that very quickly.
Well, yeah, and then I apologize for having horrible technology here too. Let me give you a chance to catch your breath. For those of you that we should all be giving Hardeep actually a round of applause because he's been out sick all week actually, and my technology dumped out on him right as he's starting to feel better and probably not at 100%. So I apologize, Hardeep, for leaving you hanging like that. But you did a great job so far. Um, Anders just put a question in the chat, which I think as we have extra time now, we should probably open up for more of a discussion format here so that we can address some of the questions that have come up in the chat and sort of delve deeper into areas of our content that we maybe did not go so far into yet. Career coaches. Getting a lot of questions about career coaches later. These are different than headhunters. Okay, these are not people that are sort of you're out there paying to find you a job. These are going to be people who are from a very developmental level, helping you rethink what this next stage of your career is going to be. This is a fork in the road for many of you, right? Some of you 15, I'm seeing 17 years out of school. Others of you maybe much sooner than that. But regardless, it is a place of self-reflection and a place of self-actualization where you need to start thinking more clearly about what your skills, values, interests, and abilities are. And it's not just a matter of taking something like the MBTI or the Strengths Finder online and interpreting it yourself and moving forward with it. That can be helpful to get a sense about what you're good at doing. But I think that you're going to need to have somebody who is, frankly, not you and not somebody that knows you, that can offer some pretty full and frank insight as to what you can offer the employment market. One of the first things I was going to say when I was having technical issues earlier is that at the School of Public Policy, we went from an average of 40% of our alums going into the federal government to 7% this year. Okay. So that was indicative of our May 2025 grads. And I imagine May 2026 is not going to be much different. How are those students successful in pivoting? How are those students successful in figuring out what other sectors they're going to go to? All of them have one thing in common. And it's something that I feel like, let me let Denise in here. I feel like it's one thing that all of you should take a few minutes and think about. It might be something that we discuss here or that you discuss with a career coach. And that is, how do you lead with skills as opposed to expertise? A lot of our students, they really want to pursue careers in a particular area of policy, or they're really passionate about a particular thing, or they have experience doing a particular thing. That's great as long as those fields still exist. Or that's great as long as those employers still exist. When that doesn't happen, and you're all of a sudden looking outside of the federal space or the larger ecosystem within the federal government, and you're looking at state, local, or you're looking at foundations or think tanks or professional associations or private sector or something else, all of a sudden you need to have a pretty clear understanding of what your transferables are. And we've all heard of transferable skills before. We all know which transferable skills we have, or at least we should have a good idea. But a career coach is going to be really good in helping you think through how to market those, how to brand yourself with those, how to talk in an interview with those, how to practice with you and talking in an interview with those. And that's a really, really big deal. Career coaches are not cheap. Okay. I think you're going to find a variety of different costs, but it's going to be more than just helping you rewrite your resume. It's going to be more than just helping you think about, oh my gosh, I've had a career in the Foreign Service for 19 years and I didn't need to do a LinkedIn before today. How do I do that? Right? Like, it's not going to be just that. It's going to be more about figuring out how you still maintain your sense of worth and your sense of value in a new space. And it is possible. We had a whole crop of new students do that this past year. We've had 2 cohorts of alumni that have come through that program that I talked about earlier that have done just that. So if you're thinking about a career coach, I would think about them in terms of how are they going to help you synthesize and pull all that information together and help you develop a brand that's going to promote yourself in a way that you might not have done before. So Anders, I hope that that answers your question. We have a couple people in here. Hina said, I hope you pronounce your name right. Used a coach to help with interviews. She helped increase my confidence. Awesome. I love to hear that. Hina Patel, if you can come off mute, where did you find your career coach?
I actually, I have been doing a lot of networking, and it just happened to be the person that I was networking with through LinkedIn. I'm like looking to pivot into a different industry, and she happens to be in that industry, but she also happens to be a coach.
Gotcha. Okay, good, good.
And so because I felt comfortable with her, it was like, it's almost like we're friends now. And so she's not trying to sell me something, and I'm comfortable with her.
Okay, good. And so for anything else besides interviewing that's been helpful?
I've been responding to some people on the chat. So somebody was asking about like separate from career coaching. They were asking about a list of employers. And so what has really helped me with all the networking I've been doing is that if you follow organizations you're interested in on LinkedIn, they'll
Hmm.
post when they're hiring. And then, in the meanwhile, you can link in with people at those organizations. So, I think networking is just huge. That's just every webinar I've been on in the last several, because I was laid off 7 months ago. And so this has been something that I've been actively working on.
Hmm.
And it's just important to do everything, but networking is really important.
So, I'm not going to keep you off on mic if I'm not making you a co-presenter here, but let's talk about networking. What kinds of strategies have people, like was talking about, pursued with sort of the broad umbrella of networking so far? What have people found helpful? Are people pursuing sort of the informational interview introductions on LinkedIn? Are you going to events? Are you doing reciprocity rings through Maryland? How's everybody here thinking about networking? What are some strategies that people are using?
Hi, this is Andrew. Sorry, if I may. I found that going on LinkedIn and trying to find people who used to work at my organization, the State Department, people who were former State Department people that work at a given organization that I'm interested in, and then just sort of cold calling, approaching them, saying, "Hey, here's my story. Would you have time for a chat?" And I've been impressed how incredibly generous most people have been with taking an hour or more and saying, "Yeah." Tell me your story. Here's what's going on. Here's some advice. Send me your resume so I could, give you some pointers or whatever. So, sort of finding people that used to work at your organization, your school, whatever, and just reaching out to them. And 9 out of 10 times they'll be happy to chat with you.
Nice.
And so, Deborah, I'll get to you in just a second. But so, Anders, are you? So there was sort of a linkage between you and the person you're reaching out to. It wasn't completely cold, but it wasn't somebody you actually knew, though. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, the state is such a huge organization that I had never heard of these people, never met them. But LinkedIn has that great attribute of, identifying people who used to work in your
Hmm.
organization, who work in that company sector or whatever.
Great. Now, before we get to Deborah, and then I'm going to go to Mika. I believe I'll gotten your name right, correct? Um, LinkedIn is not cheap. For those of you that have investigated it, I think it's $80 a month for their professional version, which does give you enhanced querying capabilities. Um, I would suggest it might be something that is worthwhile. I know Hardeep is a fan of some other tools out there that help get you some similar kinds of results. But it is something that you might want to think about investing. Deborah, what were you going to add to that?
Yeah, I actually researched organizations, professional organizations in the area I'm looking to pivot into. And I
Mhm.
joined one as an associate member. And I've been doing virtual networking at a lot of their events that they're holding. And so finding an organization that's not like a professional organization, instead of your work organization, trying to pivot to an organization that's doing the thing that you want to do, or where people are interested at least in the thing that you want to do, and finding ways to join their events that have maybe nothing to do with looking for jobs but have something to do with the industry. I'm finding that helpful.
Correct. And that's also good if you're pivoting to an industry which you have absolutely no knowledge of, too, right? Like it could be a place that's completely separate from what you've done in the past. And professional associations, by definition, exist to market and support and develop that new sector or that new kind of work that you're thinking about. So it's a perfect place. And a lot of them, too, I think, Deborah, you're echoing this, a lot of them do have some sort of professional development component to them as well, which I think you're tapping into, it sounds like.
Yeah, and mine offers a peer-to-peer mentoring program, and so
Mm.
when I'm ready for that, I'm going to pop into that. So, and they're very welcoming. I'm assuming most organizations would be, but this one's particularly welcoming, so it's working out well.
Really cool. Thank you for sharing that. Hardeep, can you answer Mika's question in the chat? What other platforms are good for
Yeah.
sort of doing the LinkedIn thing? I know you've had experience with a couple of those. And Mika, you also had your hand up. Did you want to add to the conversation?
Similar to Deborah, I've been leveraging organizations for networking, and I also recently volunteered for one of the organizations for their conference. so that I can meet executives and other people in the area that I'm living in, so that I can build out that network and try and meet people that way.
Mika, while I have you up with your hand up still, can you tell me what that takes from you internally to kind of put yourself out like that all the time?
I don't like network.
We're all friends here, so you can feel free to.
Yeah, it's safe
We're all
space.
friends.
I don't like networking. And if Denise is the Denise Joseph I went to school with, she's probably shocked because
Mm,
talker. But networking, I didn't do a lot of networking in my early career. So that's Denise, networking, I didn't do a lot in my early career. And so I feel like my network is not as strong as it
mm,
should be. So I've been putting in the effort over the last few years to build up my network. And I try and do things. I actually set it up to make myself uncomfortable so that I have to do what I'm trying to do. So I'll go to events by myself. And
mm,
what I'll do is I'll set like a time limit. Like I have to at least spend an hour here, and then I'll meet with my sister. Denise knows my sister, and she'll say, "What is your agenda?" And I'll have an agenda and a goal, and I try and hit the goal. I try and meet with people. I try and follow up with them. My networking has been good. I met someone at a conference I attended. I am
mhm.
in a career pivot right now, and so I went to a conference to
Nice.
learn more about. And I met a gentleman who, when I told him my story, asked if he could pass my resume to other people. And
Mhm.
so that did lead to some interviews, no offers, but still, that was great. A man I did not know was willing to pass my resume on to people. So that's why I'm trying to do a mixture of virtual and in person. And then I thought the volunteering would make me feel good and feel like I have some type of purpose. In addition to connecting with people, it gives me, because it's a conference, I'll be forced to talk to people and ask them if they need assistance and things like that, so it won't feel as forced. In
Yeah.
real networking, I feel forced in it.
Right. Well, I mean, I think you touch on a lot of important points there. I appreciate you sharing all that. First of all, networking is challenging, even for the most extroverted person, right? Like it's not something that is going to feel comfortable for everybody. It requires energy, it requires strength, it requires resilience, it requires bravery, it requires a lot of things that I think sort of make all of us a little bit uncomfortable. So I appreciate you sharing those strategies and the volunteering and so forth. How are people doing with elevator pitches? Okay, because when we talk about networking and we talk about interviewing, and we talk many about, for many of you, pivoting from a career that you've had for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, inevitably there's going to become the question of, hey, who are you and why are you here? Or tell me about yourself. Um, and in the programs that we did at the School of Public Policy in June and also in October, this was a big topic because, people were losing their jobs left and right, and people were struggling for words to up with words and sort of to deal with the emotions of telling that story or not telling that story as may be appropriate for a new audience of listeners. What do people think about building their elevator pitches? How are you doing with that? Are you struggling with that? Is that something that you've um, had a challenge with? Or maybe everybody's perfect at delivering elevator pitches.
Not hardly, but I don't think I'm there yet. So I something I still have to work on.
Bit shaky, Stephanie.
Yeah, I mean it's not easy, and an elevator pitch does not need to be perfect. It just you need to show genuine, some authenticity and curiosity. I think that's really what I would emphasize with an elevator pitch. Don't worry if it doesn't come out perfect, because I think more focus on just being genuine and approachable, and that way that's a little bit more helpful, I think, um, than just worrying about how perfect it is. But I would also say, like, to your point,
Sure.
maybe about networking, I think if we think of it more as like authentic relationship building, and then when we start thinking about it like that, I think the pressure starts to ease up. And then I also want you to think about being more than just a network. Think of it as like a connector, a community builder, or a relator, or something like that. Because ultimately, that's what really networking is all about. It's about connections and interacting with people. So I think when we think about it like that, I think it helps make it a little easier. And I do want to address your question about the other platforms. Part of the reason I don't sign up, I haven't signed up for LinkedIn Premium is like the platforms I mentioned in the chat, Happenstance, JobScan, and Hiring Coach, they will like they can look through your social media for you and tell you who would be good to talk to based on what you're looking for. Now, Happenstance, I felt like they were a little too, um, they knew my network a little too well. It made me uncomfortable, like from a privacy point. That's why I didn't put them in the slide deck. But, I'm not saying don't use it, but just keep in mind, like, I have some privacy concerns with that particular AI. Um, and then like LinkedIn Premium, as Brian said, it is pricey, but Allison, which one were you talking about? The one I just it was happenstance. It wasn't on the slide deck. Um, like I said, I felt like they were a little too cavalier with my privacy, so I don't necessarily recommend using them. But if you feel comfortable with their privacy policy, feel free.
Dave, if you could also address Allison's question in there about differentiating Terrapins Connect from Handshake and sort of the different levels of access for undergrads, recent grads, and alums, that'd be helpful. I don't know if you know all that. But I also
I
wanted
didn't see the
Lauren,
question.
what'd you say?
I didn't see the. Oh, here it is.
Yeah. Lauren, can I get you to come off mute too? Because I think you have a really important comment that you put in the chat there. Lauren mentioned that she's having a little bit of trouble thinking about sort of the elevator pitch because of, um, well, I never thought I'd say this, but USAID becoming political. So, do you want to talk about what that's felt like and sort of how you've maybe some strategies that you've developed? Because it's not just USAID, right? Like
Yeah.
Office for Global Media. There's plenty of other places on throughout the federal government that we've had alums that are like, you know what, my entire legacy was just made ridiculous, and I don't know how to talk about it now. So, tell me how have you dealt with that?
Yeah, no, thank you. And I'll just say real quick first, I come from the Smith School, and so I appreciate hearing kind of your perspective and everything over here from the public policy school, particularly around the struggles with networking, which was not addressed as much with the business school. So, but yeah, no, it's the elevator pitch and all of that um, has been tough for me because I found myself. Kind of censoring myself a little bit with how, the last year has gone and things like that, because it's hard
Mhm.
to um, talk about in a way that's like removed from reality. It's not just a job, it's so much more than just that. And depending on who's on the receiving end of what I'm talking about, if you're just networking with them, you don't know them that well yet, you don't know their background or their beliefs or their thoughts on things. And so it's kind of hard to gauge into how much detail to go, while also wanting to remain positive and upbeat and not bitter or anything like that as well. So yeah, it's been tough. I don't have any real answers. I will say that I do have different versions of, different pitches or different resumes or different versions of myself, right? Depending on who I'm now working with, what industry they're in or what role they're in and things like that. And I think that's helped a bit, but it's certainly not a silver bullet by any means.
Right.
Thanks.
No, I appreciate you adding that to our conversation. I think a couple of rules that I would probably try to incorporate in that, and I'm not surprised, by the way, that um, you appreciate us talking about networking in this way, because it almost feels like Smith School's requirement for entry is to be a good and external networker all the time, and it's just not everybody's built that way. So I appreciate you mentioning that. Um, the three rules, a couple rules that I would mention for that would be, when talking about USAID and the work that's done there, um, referencing the mission and not the politics, I think is one way that you can try to focus on what USAID did and your role there in making a difference, and not really who supports it or who critiques it, right? Like I think that's trying to adhere or mooring yourself more with the skills that or skill set discussion that I had earlier. I think sometimes it can also be helpful to talk about it in human terms, although increasingly these days, sometimes that even feels untenable. But when you look at health and food security, disaster response, economic opportunity, these are all universally um, understandable and relatable concepts that I think speak to your value system, and are something that I think would also skirt uh, a debate or leaving a sour taste about the relevance of a place like USAID for somebody that you might have just not met. And I also think it might be good to think about, framing some. I'm not sure what you did there, Lauren, but framing it as uh, technical and operational work, like what you did. And I think Alexander just mentioned that too. Um, Talking about things like project management and partnerships and data and implementation and program evaluation and monitoring, things like that I think are very easily relatable across other fields. I think, makes it a conversation that is easier to have. Ultimately, Lauren, I think it's clear too, from other people that I've talked to, that this is not the time for being sort of coy or embarrassed or shy about the work that you did just because it became politically unfavorable by a certain set of our population. That's not something that you can afford to do, that any of us can afford to do. And I would strongly suggest you not um, go down that alley, because that's a dark way to start defining yourself and to start thinking about what you bring forward to this new career option of yours. And I think embracing that, coming to terms with it, and developing um, language to use that's going to make you feel comfortable in an elevator pitch, which, as we all know, is anxiety forming enough, I think is going to be critical to you being successful in that way. So I hope that all makes sense and sort of helps you think about that.
Deborah?
Cool.
Yeah, I was also going to say their response to you discussing this in a very factual way could be informative to you, because it could reveal that they're a place you don't want to work. If it's,
Mhm.
a place that you're feeling them out, and you say something that's factual. They just released something today about the Schedule F policy career, and they're going to, for some positions, if you say climate change is real, that's will be a fireable offense. And I mean, we don't want to sort of tiptoe around things that are facts and things that are known problems. And if we do hear that somebody we're talking to has issues with reality, maybe we don't want to work there anyway. So I was just going to say, you don't want to be, negative or bitter, like you said, but you also don't want to hide your own relationship with reality and what you hope to do either.
Correct. I think that's very well said. This is a great conversation we're having, guys.
Yeah.
We still have about 5 or 6 minutes for other thoughts, other things people want to share. I know we've had multiple technological glitches tonight that we're going to send out worksheets and other things for you to back up the meeting. But how about other comments and questions people have in the time that we have remaining?
Can I just offer a quick question? Apologies. What about, while we're looking for jobs, sort of looking at executive grad degrees or certification courses or whatever, are those, is the juice worth the squeeze? I mean, are there, number one, do you find it's worthwhile? Number two, are there specific sectors, specific certifications or executive whatevers that seem to prep somebody for a new career than others? Over.
Yeah, I'll offer a couple thoughts, and maybe Hardeep, you can follow up with some others if I miss anything here. This was one of the components of the 2-day workshops that we offered at SPP in June and October. And we found we didn't know what to expect. And we brought in community colleges to talk about upskilling in certain areas. And they brought in staff and described a few of their courses that covered a variety of topics from grant writing to whatever. And our alums ate it up. They thought that was awesome. We didn't know what to expect. Some of our alums had master's degrees, some were bachelor's, a couple PhDs actually. But these community colleges talked about very particular skill sets, short term, cost effective, your juice is worth the squeeze comment, um, not very expensive, quick upskills that they thought were going to be really helpful in them translating some of their skills in terms of not just bullet statements on a resume, but also certifications that they could mention in their education. So my suggestion would be yes. For those of you that have bachelor's degrees, there are also executive master's programs, a lot very locally. Um, I would I would do your research before you plop down time and money for these sorts of things, right? Like not all are created equal. I think there is a need to sort of feel like you're building a new set of skills to produce to your new employer without sort of fully investing what your thought process might be in the utilization of that degree, and that can take some time. So I would look before you jump. Deborah, you want to add something in that?
Yeah, I can actually attest if you're a Montgomery County resident, Montgomery College has Ed to
Mm.
Go and You Got Class, which are virtual asynchronous programs. And I've taken a few classes, including starting a consulting business. I think that one was $200 or less. And it's, about a month or two time commitment. Um, they give you a couple extra weeks at the end to finish. And I thought it was highly valuable. And I even took a chat GPT intro class through them. And I'm signed up for the free one here. You might guys might want to mention the business
This
tools
one?
free certification for the AI. But I'll just say personal experience, highly look at your community college and see what they've got for especially adult learners, distance learning, asynchronous. It's
Mhm.
been great.
Yeah, and cost effective, as you said too. Absolutely. Hardeep, did I miss anything on that from the programs we offered?
No, and I think, and I do want to say, like, the community colleges, like Deborah mentioned, Montgomery College, Prince George's, Howard, they're all relatively close to Maryland. So, um, I know just from what I've seen, they've been really making a pivot or making a strong push to include or help people who are making these career transitions. So definitely take a look and, like Brian said, do your research and really make sure it's what you want before you commit time and money to it.
Also, Lauren gets a gold star here because she just sent me a LinkedIn invite. So thank you for that. Um, I think we should sort of start moving towards wrapping up, but I would suggest that each and every one of you connect with both Hardeep and myself on LinkedIn so that we can uh, use each other's networks and build off of that. Um, I also think that the biggest strength of this group here tonight has not just been what Hardeep and I have shared, but it's been everything that each of you brought to the conversation and to this wonderful chat that we've had going on the entire time. If any of you would like to leave your email address for others to follow up with in terms of job
Or
leads or other kinds of connections, please feel free to put that in the chat too. Go ahead, Hardeep.
I was gonna say you could also put your LinkedIn URL in there too in the chat if you want. And I just want to say thank you all for coming out tonight. I know we had a couple technology issues, but I think this is a great session. I hope you all got something out of this. And if you do want a copy of the slides or the sheet, my email is that first one. Just email me and I will send you the copy of the slides. And thank you all so much. This is a great session.
Hardeep, would
Yeah.
you be willing to share the emails that everybody's putting in when you send out the slides too? Because I'm not sure I'm going to be able to capture it all before it flies by my screen.
Yeah. So what we
Yeah, we'll
can,
have to get the meeting chat.
yeah,
Okay.
we'll get the meeting chat, and once we're done with this, we will connect with our contact over at the Alumni Association and make sure we get all the materials out to everybody that registered, including the chat log, because I think
Oh,
that's going to be important with everybody's information there.
that's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. The one final thing I'd say before we head off, everybody, is keep your chin up. this is not an easy process everybody's going through, but I think you all are doing the right things in terms of attending events like this, sharing your stories, helping each other out. I think that's the biggest thing. And just know that that Maryland is here to support you as well as you start to make this transition.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
All right, as always, go Terps.
Thank you all.
Take
Thanks.
care.